Good evening, and thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Professor Petford, and thank you very much, Professor Anne Sheldon Mays. I hope I pronounced your name perfectly. And of course, Professor Dennis Hayway, for all inviting me here tonight, and giving me this opportunity to experience such an intellectual feast that I have been having during the last 2 days. And I also would like to have especially grateful, I am grateful to Eunice for her kind invitation, but before that it is sharing my passion to ensure that all children should grow up healthy, happy, and able to learn wherever they are, whoever they are. So we are talking about equities and equalities for all children. And it is an exciting time for Northampton University because they are taking this task audaciously and a leadership role audaciously, and stirring great interest among professionals, academicians, as well as politicians to create momentum for early childhood development, not only at the national level, but globally. Congratulations to you all. I would like to start with my I think some of you have been listening to me for the last 2 days, so I'm sorry that it's a repetition for some of you, but I would like to start with a great vision that has been developed together with all of the UN system, the academicians. This is the vision that we would like to see today and in the future, that all children who survive, and should survive first of all, and develop their full potential. This is already enshrined in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. It is on Article 6, and there are other articles in the Convention that we have been discussing today during the roundtable that refer to a child's holistic development. We also have to give the best start in life to all children to be physically healthy, mentally alert, socially competent, emotionally sound, able to learn. Not ready to learn. I wrote it there, ready to learn, because it is taken from the World Fit for Children resolution and the declaration signed by all governments. So that's why I couldn't change it. But we know, and we discuss this again, learning starts at birth, and we are talking about ability to learn right from the start. We also would like to see that children go to school on time and learn, and get additional support if and when if they are disabled, marginalized, caught in conflict, and vulnerable in any ways. So this is the vision that we have for our children. I would like to start, before I start the evidence, I would like to quote Linda Miller and Dennis Hayway, who argued that evidence evaluated rigorously and applied rationally is rarely the sole basis on which policy choices are made. That was also our discussion this afternoon at the roundtable, how politically driven the agenda. But we also know that although politics are politics, we can make the change through a solid evidence. And we know that growing evidence and knowledge and experience coming from the field will tell us that we can change the game. We can make sure that and assure that children who grow up, I mean, we all know and we are convinced about this, that all children who grow up in a loving, caring, stimulating home environment that is enhanced by quality early childhood services do well in school and in life. Success stories for effective early childhood programs like effective preschool and primary education, EPPE, from this country, I'm sure you're all aware of, and Sure Start, give us the hope that we can translate evidence and field practice into powerful policies and actions for young children around the world. It seems that, especially supported by the concrete field examples, and again, and reinforced by growing scientific evidence, the time is ripe for making a case for early childhood development, not for economically in advanced countries like UK, US, or Sweden, but also for young children in less developed countries around the world. Risking the danger of repetition, please let me begin with game-changing evidence that is not only informing why early childhood development is important, but how doable it is for all of us in UK, in Sweden, or in Ghana, or in Kenya. This is the slide. Recent scientific evidence from neurological studies of brain development has confirmed that earlier knowledge and conviction that the early childhood is the most decisive time over the life course, especially the first 5 years, and provide an immense window of opportunity for child's physical growth and emotional and cognitive development. What's new? We have known this from the Comenius time, Pestalozzi, Rousseau, and for centuries that early childhood mattered. And it is embedded in our culture. For example, in Turkey, where I come from, we have a saying, we have a proverb saying that whoever you are at the age of 7, this is what you are at the age of 70. And this resonates with Saint Francis Xavier's statement in the 16th century, he said, "Give me a child until he's 7, I will give you the man." I wishfully assume that Saint Francis Xavier used the masculine term man and he, gender neutrally. So what is important now is that we can see it with our own eyes on our MR screens and how those neurons connect, how those brains are wired, and how we could make a change in the lives of children. I would like to draw your attention to this wonderful table, which tells us that the first 4 years of life in terms of brain development and sensitive periods in brain development. And what you see is several different lines, like connecting the brains and synapses. And we can see that language starts very early, emotion control starts very early, and the central auditory system starts very early. So if you could see this, the first 4 years of life is the window of opportunity for our brain to develop. Either we use it during that time, or we make sure that children use it, or we lose it. Of course, we don't lose it fully, but that's the window of opportunity that we should be looking into. Brain development doesn't happen only biologically. According to neuroscience scientists, especially Professor Shankov and others, it is not one-way traffic. The brain is shaped by our interactions with the society, with our environment. And it's like a tennis ball, serve and return. It is back and forth relationship. It's not one-way street. So, however, due to various reasons, for this interaction patterns can be disrupted. But we know that this is not also coming from neurological science, because earlier Bronfman Brenner had also explained how important the interaction between the child and immediate environment, and how we could look at these interactional patterns and talk about the development of the child. The important thing is here that if the child during the earlier years experiences neglect or abuse or any other stress, the child will experience toxic stress. And we can see it on the MR. That's the scar is left from that disruption of interactions. And it is irreversible. So that's why the early years is important. And that comes from a scientific evidence which we knew for centuries. I'd like to come back to one important study that comes from a very famous and well-known professor from England, University College London, Sally McGregor. She did carry out this study in Jamaica, in poor environment and with poor families. And this was all about how you could enhance this interaction between the caregiver, the mother, and the babies and children, and how this could be coupled with other interventions like nutrition, like promoting healthy living. And what she did, she trained home visiting health workers to counsel the mother on interacting with her babies in a stimulating, responsive, and sensitive way. It was all about yesterday. Professor Petford asked me, what do you mean with stimulation? It's very easy. It is talking to your child, looking into your child's eyes, touching the child, and playing with the child, communicating with the child. Very simple, soft things quite often do not get into the minds of politicians. But anyway, this is what all about. And of course, this time, Sally McGregor has taken some group of stunted children who did have 2 standard deviation malnutrition and the non-stunted children. She started following them for 24 months and measured them on various developmental quotients along the way. And that table is a kind of a legendary table for us because it was in 1991, as you could see, not a new one. The children who started low, because they are stunted, some of them were not a control group. Of course, ethically, these children were selected according to, we don't want to, it is an ethical study. I don't want to go into that detail, but let's concentrate on the results. These children were stunted and did not have any intervention, did not participate in any intervention. The blue ones received supplementation, food, and micronutrients. And the second one received only stimulation, talking, playing, communicating, etc. And mainly home-based toys. Sally McGregor is very particular about toys made at home by parents, not shop-buy toys. In fact, she was quite arguing with us that we should not be using them. And this yellow line is both stimulation and food supplementation. When you look at the yellow line, you could see that children at the age of 24 is almost catching up the non-stunted children. In fact, later on, the studies from Romania and others confirmed the same results. And 24 months became a kind of keyword for child development, especially for integrated programs like health and nutrition. The most important one is that these children followed up, and at the age of 17, 18, in fact, Sally has followed them up. Now these children are 40 years of age. Less than 40. So, and more results are coming. It looked that these children did better in mathematics, reading comprehension, sentence completion, vocabulary. So you can see that the gains that they had during the stimulation and food remained. And they were less anxious, less depressed, better self-esteem compared to control group. Most importantly, the mothers of these parents, these children, had less depressed. This line is the control group of mothers who continued to be getting more mentally unstable and depressed, while the intervened group's depression went down. This is very important for maternal depression, maternal health, because maternal health is extremely important for child's development. We repeated this Sally McGregor study in Pakistan. UNICEF supported a program in Pakistan. Now the children are 5 years old, and we started with newborn babies. It was Aisha Yusufzai. She's a great researcher who is carrying out and who is in charge of this program. We did the same study, repeated exactly what Sally did in Jamaica. And in Pakistan, in a small region in Karachi, we have, now the results are coming up. Unfortunately, we don't have the written article yet, that's why I couldn't quote, but initial results tell us that there's intervention, benefited caregiving environment, knowledge and practice pertaining to development and feeding. So child development and feeding is getting better. And significantly benefited mother-child interaction and increased opportunities for stimulation. Most importantly, early childhood and nutrition group, which is stimulation and nutrition, have greater developmental benefits, and exposure to ECD intervention, only early childhood development interventions, benefits development of vulnerable children. So another thing that had come out earlier from another study, that those children who come from vulnerable homes are the ones who most benefit from these kind of services, because in a way it compensates what is missing in the home. And unfortunately, these are the children who have less access to this kind of quality interventions. That comes from Professor Heckman, Nobel laureate. He has carried out analytical studies and continues doing more analytical studies, and has come up with a very interesting chart, and it also became a kind of famous chart. And if you look at this, rate of return to your investment is the highest in the earlier years. If you invested in the 0-3, you get highest return. If you invested in job training later on, those who haven't dropped out of school, did not achieve well in school, you get very little benefit. So where you put your money, if you're a government official or a Minister of Finance, if I were a Minister of Finance, I would put my money here, because this is where I get the highest rate of return. 3 lessons came from Heckman's extensive review. First, you have to develop the whole child concept. You cannot divide the child into health, nutrition, education, etc. And you cannot just talk about preschool education or vaccination. You have to focus on multiplicity of human abilities and come up with this concept. Invest in early childhood development, because inequalities open up early. And early remediation is far more effective than later remediation and low cost. In fact, if you invest in later life, you're actually damage control. You're doing a damage control because you haven't done the job earlier. So that comes from an economist perspective. The Lancet papers, which is, I'm sure that you know, the Lancet paper is one of the most prestigious medical journal, which sets the agenda for health, global health, have published 2 series of papers on early childhood development. The first one was in 2007, and it claimed that 200 million children are at risk of developing their full potential. Those children, we know why, because risk factors were poverty, poor health, poor nutrition, and lack of stimulation and learning opportunities. So we were not giving the best start to all children, especially those who live in poor and less developed countries. The Lancet published a second series of early childhood development papers, that in 2011, and that reviewed successful studies and suggested strategies for early childhood development. They came up with two models, two different strategies. One is for 0-3. For children up to 0-3 age group, parenting programs. We have to make sure that families and parents are able to provide this quality care, sensitive care for their children, including prenatal, mainstreaming into community-based material, child health, nutrition, and education intervention. This afternoon, we had a great conversation, and we knew that community-based intervention was important. It came up again. But we do need to also promote center-based, quality early childhood development programs, especially for 3 to 6 years of age. What came up clearly also is the social protection and welfare policies. Quite often we say, okay, families, we will support the families, they will provide the care. But we know that if the families are affected by poverty, affected by different kinds of risk, and there are several risk factors in the house, it will be difficult for the families and parents to provide this quality care that the child needs, or they cannot interact with the child. So the social protection policies, like social cash transfer, etc., can create that enabling environment for families to be able to provide that good quality care for their children. In fact, cash transfers has been extensively studied in Latin America and in some of the African countries, and it turned out to be one of the most effective ways of empowering families to provide quality care for their own children. Okay, and I have been reading a lot, and Eunice has been bombarding me with so many materials from UK before I came. And it turned out to be that 2 lessons came from your own country. In fact, you set the scene for the world. It's not the first time. Evaluation of the EPPE, early years comes up from Professor Melrish's article, but I know that there's also a book on that. Early years are important. Preschool is a part of infrastructure for successful society. High quality preschool boosts development. Parenting is important. Preschool lifts the population curve, and parenting programs lift the tail. And most importantly, reviewing the Sure Start program, he came up with this conclusion. Sure Start worked best where health services were integrated truly into children's center. This is what we've been discussing today, Denny. So, if this is the case for UK and for the world, where are we around the world? I will just take you through a couple of slides which were published by UNICEF based on Early Childhood Development Index, actually home environment questionnaire that we have in the multiple indicators cluster survey that UNICEF carries out regularly to monitor the children's situation around the world. We have managed to put a couple of questions into that mix multiple indicators cluster survey. Like, for example, if the child is read books at home, or talked to, or played with some toys by who's playing with the child, or if the child is left home alone, if the child experienced any harsh disciplining, or what kind of disciplining child-rearing patterns in the house. So this is what the results coming up from several countries. Support for learning. And we have asked question, who is playing and reading books to children in the house? First of all, it is mother. And these are the countries that we have selected for this study because, and I'm sure that it's a small slide, a crowded slide, but it starts with Lao People Democratic Republic, Djibouti, Tajikistan, Mauritania, Ghana, Mongolia, Nigeria, Vietnam, etc. When you look at it, it looks very clear that it is very clear it is mother. Father and other people in the home are engaged in child's learning, early learning. But when you look at, even if it is mother, in these countries, engagement is extremely low. And Montenegro is doing very well. Jamaica is doing very well. Although it is mothers, but they are doing well. But when you go to these countries, children are not getting any good interaction in the home with the adults. That's the work about violent behavior. Blue is positive, non-violent discipline, and red is violent discipline. That gives you a clear picture how we are bringing up our children. It's all about beating up, smacking the children, and that goes on in almost in all families. If we are talking about violence against children, I think we should start thinking about violence against children before we go to the battleground. It's here at home. And then we can talk about conflicts and battles and this. But children are experiencing and learning and getting used to that violence at home before even they go out. So that's a very important area that we should be looking into. The poorest children are at risk of being left home alone or under the supervision of another child younger than 10 years of age. Again, and then this time we looked at the rich and poor. The blue is rich, the first highest 20 percentile, and green is the poorest. When you look at Yemen, for example, whether it is rich or poor, children are always left home alone or under the supervision of another child. That child is, I can assure you, a girl child who doesn't go to school, stay at home, look after the babies. So this is another important element. Okay. This is another one that is telling us if there are children books at home. We all know that books are important for children's reading. And when you look at it, and this is again rich and poor. Blue is rich, quintile and highest, and the green is, or dark blue is the poorest. Low is not doing well. That's red one is the average. So Ukraine is doing well, almost 100%. Montenegro is doing well, Serbia is doing well, but Laos is not doing well. That's why we have a difference in terms of development. I would like to go to another one. That's the access. You can see while I was putting these two slides, I said, am I using the same slide again? And then it turned out to be that they are not the same slide, but same statistics. Those children who do not have books at home are likely the ones who will not have access to early childhood programs. That's about early childhood programs. So you can see how all these risk factors are compiling and accumulating on top of each other, creating that risky environment for the poorest children of the world. So, that's the situation around the world in terms of child development. And then I would like to come back to the CRC, Convention on the Rights of the Child, which assures that all children have right to development, to education, to good care, to family life, and which is not the case. What we have done, in 2010, actually, Secretary General, the UN Secretary General, reviewing the situation, has come up he came up with a report to the General Assembly about implementing the rights of the child in early childhood, which is based on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, General Comment Number 7, which lays the guidelines, gives the guideline how to implement CRC. And he said it clearly, implementing rights in early childhood requires a comprehensive, child-centered framework of laws, policies, and community-based services to enable young children to exercise their rights and achieve their full potential. I think this is a great starting point. Based on this report, the third committee, which works on economic and social development of the world, has come up with a UN resolution on CRC. It's a great resolution. I put the reference there for you to go and look at it. I'm quoting here the Article 49, which calls upon governments, donor agencies, and all others, sorry for the typo, to support early childhood development programs financially and technically, and enhance effective international cooperation and partnership, and to strengthen capacity building in research and professional training. So, this is a quantum leap for early childhood development, getting a global political commitment. The question comes in now, how can this be turned into a solid promise within the Sustainable Development Agenda of the post-2015 that we've been talking about? The first bold statement came from Mrs. Margaret Chan. She is the head of WHO, and she wrote a commentary in The Lancet, linking child survival and child development for health, equity, and sustainable development. That was her bold statement. And she said, all children who survive should develop to their full potential capacity, full capacity, and added that this is not only as a human right, but also for equitable prosperity and sustainable progress of societies. So that's a starting point. I hope that the other heads of UN agencies will come up with similar bold statements. But also it is important that heads of governments come up with these kind of bold statements. We hope that we will expect one, we'll get one from UK and also others. I would like to just turn now to what is it that post-2015 agenda? I'm sure most of you are aware of what's going on around the world. Post-2015 agenda actually refers to the year that the current Millennium Development Goals will expire. As you know, we have 8 Millennium Development Goals. One of them is health, education, ending poverty, etc. We have done very well with achieving those goals. For example, child mortality goal, when it was set in 2002, the child mortality was about 12 million a year. Today it is 6.6 million. It's a great achievement, but it's also a great responsibility for the global community. Those who survive should develop their full potential. I'll go a little bit faster, and the post-2015 agenda is different from the Millennium Development Goals. Millennium Development Goals were for developing countries, but post-2015 agenda for all of us, developed and developing countries. They all are held accountable for reducing the inequality, closing the gap between the rich and poor, make sure that all children, wherever they are, whoever they are, will develop their full potential, and it is the foundation. And there's a transformative shift, equality and equity, sustainable development. Economies, transform economies for jobs and inclusive growth, peace and global partnership. And that's the framework. So it is all about inclusive economic, social, and environmental development, which is supported by peace and security, and then achieve sustainable human development. Where are we? This is the progress of developing the post-2015 agenda. It started in 2012. The Secretary General assigned the MDG group to start the process, and he assigned high-level eminent members of selected high-level eminent members for a high-level panel, co-chaired by 3 people. One is Prime Minister of UK. Your Prime Minister is heading the high-level panel. The President of Liberia and President of Indonesia. And there are 27 eminent people selected around the world. So they are talking to people, listening to different platforms, and coming up with a report. They did prepare their report. During this time, early childhood community has been really busy putting all this evidence and putting all these reports and making a buzz saying that early childhood is important, it should be at the center of the global development agenda. As Dionys and her said, evidence doesn't really move the political agenda. We have learned our lesson. This is the HLP report, proposed, come up with several goals. And when you look at those goals, like end poverty, there's no reference to early childhood and early childhood development. But we all know that investing in early childhood development is going to break the intergenerational cycle of poverty. But why are we not there? Empower girls and women, childcare and development, a decent work needs attention. If you do not have good quality childcare services for those working parents, you will not be able to make a case for decent work, nor will be able to help children grow to their full potential. Provide quality education and lifelong learning. That's the only place you can get a target for preschool. Only preschool. This is a kind of regression from education for all goal number 1, which was increased access to quality care and education from 0 to 8. Now we are coming back to preschool. I think it is not acceptable. Ensure healthy lives. No mention of ECD. We've been talking about mental health, maternal mental health, child health, etc. Why aren't we there? Etc. So ensure stable and peaceful societies. So this is the report submitted to the Secretary General, but still they're working on it. There's an open working group who's writing the post-2015 agenda for until February next year. This is the time that we should be more bold and more assertive, and then come up with a goal that should be seen visible. So what we have been doing until now, that we were trying to put early childhood development in different thematic areas. I think the time has come to propose a global goal for early childhood development. That will be shaping, or that will be giving this whole concept of holistic child. It will embrace all other important elements of health, nutrition, social welfare. It will cut across all these areas and give us an opportunity to be part of other thematic areas, but also give us an opportunity to monitor what we want to achieve in terms of child development. So this is a kind of proposed goal. Nothing is, and in fact, this is not coming from me. There was a group of child development experts who met somewhere and started writing the goal. And they said this goal should be comprehensive, holistic, measurable, doable, achievable, and specific for child development. So we are coming up with some kind of ideas that all children should develop their full potential, and all young children. And then we can come up with targets like young children experiencing positive, sensitive, responsive parenting, increase access to quality integrated early childhood services, create an enabling environment for families, caregivers through effective social policies. We know what is right for children. We know what we can measure. We already have indicators for home environment and child development outcomes. We can easily come up with measurable targets for child development. So, I would like to leave you, before we come to that one, I would like to again thank you to this Northampton University, but also we are not staying here. Tomorrow we are going to Westminster. And one thing that we are so hopeful that Dame Tessa Jowell and all APPG group, all party parliamentarians group on 2001 days, and all others will be with us, and we will be taking our case to your politicians, your parliamentarians, together with all other, and UNICEF will be coming from New York, already here, I hear, and also some NGOs from UK and from around the world. We will make this case to your parliamentarians how we could really make a bold statement for all children, especially for all young children, to survive and develop their full potential to become physically healthy, mentally alert, socially competent, emotionally sound, able to learn. That's what we want for all our children today, tomorrow, and forever. I would like to leave you with a wonderful statement from Martin Luther King. It's always right to do the right things. Thank you.